Okay, so now that we have all of these great metrics, how can we share them both internally and externally to maximize awareness of your program's results? So let's dive a little bit deeper into that question. And so I wanted to start with this saying, because impact metrics give you half of the communications equation. Your results are best used to provide scale to the stories of how you're helping people, which can be impactful on a much more personal level. So you helped Jane and her family get access to long-term housing. That's wonderful, but it's even better when you can say that you helped 1,000 families do that same thing. So now that we have these results, how can we share them? So we're going to go through 4 steps. The first step is establish goals and metrics. At the PepsiCo Foundation, we have consolidated our goals and our foundation goals and targets into our 3 focus areas: water, food security, and economic opportunity. Then these provide guidance as we collect and monitor data from our partners and programs. The next step is measure your impact. So once we have our goals and targets clear, we invite our programmatic partners to the sort of social impact measurement process. When we distribute then the funds, we ask our partners to create sort of a social impact forecast to capture their anticipated outcomes. And then they update those forecasts with final results once the project is completed. So as we talked about before, keeping things clear and consistent from the start of the partnerships makes it easier for grant makers to communicate about reporting, and for the many stakeholders implementing and reporting on a project to communicate internally. So there is, this bravery in setting and then being clear about your goals with those who will make them happen. Step 3 is determine audience and appropriate context. So now that we have years of continuously collected social impact data, the data requests can be pulled by grant managers or leadership and crafted to the audience and the context as needed. And then the last step is distribute impact data. When we distribute results, we often include narratives from the communities to add depth and humanity to our data. So just remember how we started this section: no stories without numbers and no numbers without stories. And now that we've gotten better at communicating our impact, we're beginning to face a new problem, but this is a good problem. It's a good problem to have. The more we move away from reporting inputs and outputs, such as dollars spent, to actual impact, the hungrier leadership becomes for this kind of information. So when leadership hears the story about how a few women in a small community in Ethiopia were able to save themselves hours of their day, transforming their lifestyle by having safer and closer water access, leadership wants to know how that transformation looks across all their programs, not just in these few women in this small community. So because of the usefulness of impact data we've been collecting at the Foundation, we're currently exploring how to sort of broaden the scope of data collection from our partners in order to include these types of valuable results in our reporting and communication. So this next slide just shows a few tangible examples of how we've communicated our impact both internally and externally, whether it be through a data dashboard, presentations, social media, and even large-scale reports such as our annual sustainability report. So now let's get back to the pop-up questions Sadie shared at the beginning of our presentation to bring our conversation sort of full circle. These are the sorts of questions that Sadie and I get asked on a regular basis. And when you have the right data, you can get ahead of these questions. So let's quickly go through each one to see what sort of answers you'd be able to reply with, assuming that you've prepared with the data on those 4 KPIs that we just reviewed. So for this, we're going to use some real answers from the work at the PepsiCo Foundation. The first question is, which intervention strategies will best deliver on our goals? So one of the partnerships that we are tracking is WaterAid. So our partnership in Nigeria will increase the availability of clean water for 43,000 people and rehabilitate dysfunctional public water and sanitation facilities. And to complement enhanced WASH access, WaterAid will target women and girls in healthcare centers and schools with behavior change campaigns focused on basic hygiene practices. So this example reflects a clear alignment not only to our focused area, but also to our priority cohorts as well as region. So with all the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is a question many programs are being asked right now. For our answer, we looked specifically at PepsiCo's community college program, the example we saw earlier in the presentation, where we're training 4,000 scholars in Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. The next question is, we've spent millions on different charitable initiatives. How are we catalyzing beyond our own funding? As we mentioned earlier, the PepsiCo Foundation seeks out opportunities for foundational investment. And because of this, we're able to track how much catalytic investment has come from our initial investments. And in some cases, as much as $2 have been generated from other funders for every $1 we've invested originally. Another important question, can you trust the data that you're getting? Now, at PepsiCo, we have a pretty rigorous cross-functional data governance review process that you see outlined here that gives us confidence in the data that we use. And knowing the source of each of our nonprofit programs' results is absolutely key for us having this confidence in which data we do and do not use. And then finally, lastly, and maybe this is the most important question out of them all, is, are you really helping move the needle on the issues your company cares about? So from the example we used earlier on in the presentation, at PepsiCo, we've helped more than 68 million people gain safe water access on our way to reaching the 100 million people by 2030. And, because I just joined the foundation recently, I think this is honestly one of the reasons why I was so excited to join the PepsiCo Foundation team, because they are committed to moving that needle.